Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we're going to talk about how 50,000 veterans in the Fort Knox region deserve better. And I am a Navy corpsman running for magistrate, and I'm going to tell all. Now, that opening sound came from where my little brother is buried. So he died before he could turn 40, just a couple weeks before. And in April, he would have been 52. So Kentucky knows the cost of war, cost of service. My brother served proudly from Kentucky, and talking about tonight some things that really are near and dear to me and to many of us who live here in this county. So this is the Hillbilly Think Tank. I am Spencer Keck, and I am running for magistrate in District 3. I'm coming at you live from Tunnel Hills. I am the educated hillbilly. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies ever since my kin came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone and settled here in Hardin County and in other places in the eastern part of the state. Now, when you leave the military after all those years of service, you're leaving a kinship and a brotherhood behind that few people ever get the honor of knowing. But that's one that I broke my teeth on. And on a deployment, you learn one thing fast. Your buddy on your left and your buddy on your right, that's who's got your back. The government sends you in, but it's the person beside you that brings you home. When you get back, when you hang up that uniform, when you walk through that gate for that last time, man, you got a right to expect that your government keep its end of the bargain too. Now today I'm here to tell you, they didn't. and I'm done staying quiet about it. Now, one of the things that we all got to remember is every single veteran, you know, they deserve better. And again, like I said, I'm Spencer Keck. I am a combat veteran. I'm a retired U.S. Navy hospital corpsman, Fleet Marine Force warfare qualified, and enlisted surface warfare qualified, which means I served with Marines in combat and I served in Navy ships in combat. It also means I spent a lot of time honing the skills necessary to do each of those jobs perfectly in each of those settings. So, with 24 years of service, I joined in 1990 and I retired in 2014. And now I'm a public school teacher right here in Kentucky. Now, I taught first at North Hardin High School in Radcliffe, and I'm currently teaching in Jefferson County Public Schools. I'm also running for magistrate here in Hardin County, Kentucky, District 3, like I was saying previously. But today, I'm not here to talk to you as a politician. I'm talking to you as one of your own. As someone who wore the uniform, who treated wounds downrange and at home, who watched service members give everything they had and then come home to a system that too often gave them nothing in return. This is a show where we're going to tell the truth. No spin, no campaign jargon, just the facts about what's happening to veterans, active duty and active duty military families and veteran families right here in Hardin County. And what we can actually do about it. So let's get into it. The veterans of Hardin County, Kentucky, they are a very large portion of folks that live here. And before I get into politics, I want to make sure that you understand just how significant the military and veteran community is right here in Hardin County, Kentucky. So, Hardin County, we have one of the largest per capita veteran populations in the whole state. And we've got the third largest by population in the entire Commonwealth of Kentucky, with over 12,400 veterans calling this county home. Let me say that again, over 12,000 veterans. And that's not counting the active duty soldiers at Fort Knox, their families, the National Guard members, the reservists, and the military retirees living in communities like Radcliffe, Vine Grove, Elizabethtown, Wrightyville, all the way over to, well, where else we want to go? Goldsburg. They're all amongst us in all of our communities. And yes, of course, a very large portion right here in District 3. So we know that the city of Radcliffe, which sits right outside of Fort Knox's main gate, that's home to one of the largest concentrations of military veterans in the entire state of Kentucky. The greater Fort Knox region is home to nearly 50,000 veterans. And that's not a constituency. That's a complete army. Fort Knox itself spans parts of Hardin County, Meade County, and Bullitt counties, and it's essentially a city, a certified Kentucky city, one of the largest in the Commonwealth. The Army Human Resources Command, the Army Cadet Command, these are headquartered right here in our own backyard. Now, we are a military community. We are a veteran community. We have always shown up when America called. And the question that I'm going to ask today, question you should be asking today is, why won't the Republican Party show up for us. Now let's talk about broken promises and how Republicans have let veterans down. I want to be very clear. I'm not here to attack every individual who votes Republican Party. Many of my fellow veterans are Republicans, and I respect that. I respect every single one of them. You know, we put our life on the line, and so we get to choose which party we want to affiliate with. There's just nothing, saying more about that. No, it's not necessary to talk anymore about that. But what I'm here to talk about is a pattern, and it's a consistent, documented pattern that the Republican Party is saying the right things about the veterans when it's time for elections to roll around and to campaign, and then doing the wrong thing when it's time to govern. Let's start at the top. President Captain Bone Spurs, during his 2024 campaign, stood in front of audiences across this country, stood in front of veterans, and said, and I quote the spirit of it, "We have to take care of our veterans. I will put veterans first." Those were the words. Here's what happened next. The Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, came into the Department of Veterans Affairs like a wrecking ball, like a bull in a china shop. Now, according to the Senate Democrats, over 2,400 VA staffers were fired right in that initial wave, with plans announced to eliminate up to 80,000 more. That's 1 in 5 workers at the VA, the people who answer the phones when a veteran is in crisis. Now, how do I know about that? Well, I was one of those people. When I retired from the hospital corps in the Navy, I spent many years in the VA in Montana, and I was one of those people who was answering the phones, greeting folks at the desk as they came in for an appointment, making their appointments, looking to check and see which people needed appointments and would need to be called and reached out to. I was the one advocating for them when they were getting pushback on their care. And I was even calling up Senator Tester in Montana at the time and getting folks what they needed when they got the pushback that they shouldn't have been getting. So I know about these jobs. And I know about my folks that still stayed behind and worked with them after that and what they're going through now. Now I moved around federal government, went to work as a supervisor immigration for a bit, then went back to the VA, was a supervisor of training. And then I decided that's when I wanted to do more for my community, and I really missed home, so I came back to Kentucky to do the troops to teachers thing. But I know about the VA. I get all my health care there still, and it has saved my life. But, those people who schedule your appointments, a lot of them are veterans too, like myself. The people who process your disability claims, they're gone. People that are making your appointments, processing your disability claims, they're gone. They've been let go. DOGE went through, like I said, just like a wrecking ball, and they cut out over 2,400 people, lickety split. And then we lost the ability to now take care of over 800 VA contracts. VA contracts, they're going to cover everything from chemotherapy treatment to records digitization, cancer treatment. Folks, that's real serious because my dad died of cancer in the VA hospital in Lexington, Kentucky. So that means a lot to me. My dad died way younger than I expected, but he was a Vietnam vet. That Agent Orange, it got him. So we cannot let more veterans die because of DOGE. For veterans who served, who were exposed to toxins, burn pits, Agent Orange like my dad, who are now fighting for their lives, that's 800 contracts of providers that would save lives. So internal VA emails obtained by ProPublica revealed that doctors at the VA hospitals were sending out the alarms about the severe and immediate impacts, including, to quote, life-saving cancer trials. More than 1,000 veterans were at risk of losing access to treatment for diseases ranging from metastatic head and neck cancers to kidney diseases to traumatic brain injuries. Think about that. A veteran fights for his country, comes home sick from exposure to burn pits, to Agent Orange, and God knows what else. Like I said, I have two brothers who were together in Afghanistan when one got blown up. The other brother, still surviving, he's going to have PTSD for the rest of his life because he was deployed with my other brother at the same time. So Kelly Keck, Staff Sergeant Kelly Keck, is not with us anymore, but our little brother, Captain Matthew, he still is. So I know actually what else is not being treated, not being taken care of. I am the what else. Finally, let's get into the VA clinical trials. Folks didn't get into them because they were cut by DOGE. And then DOGE marks the funding that was supposed to go for clinical trials for immediate termination. Man, this administration did not put veterans first. It put billionaires first. And what did our Republican Representative Brett Guthrie do? He has served as a rubber stamp for Republican leadership. While veterans in Kentucky's 2nd Congressional District, our district, were being left behind, Representative Guthrie remained aligned with a party that was systematically dismantling the VA, where I get my health care from, where my dad got his health care from before he died, where my brother Kelly got his health care from before he passed away, where my brother Matthew is still getting his health care. And veterans in Hardin County, they deserve a representative at every level of government who will fight for them. And they're not going to hesitate in this fight. They're going to do it without apology and without any political calculation. And that's not what veterans have been getting. We have not been getting that leadership out of our Guthrie. Not at all. Haven't got it from the top down. So there is a VA clinic that's coming. And here to Elizabethtown. Why did it take this long? That's what we're going to talk about next. First, let's take a little puppy break. And we'll also check and see if we got any folks on that want to say anything or want me to think about something I hadn't thought about yet. So, all right, first puppy break. All right, so I see we got Tom on here. Tom Armstrong. Good to see you again tonight, brother. And I'm going to download the puppy pics you sent for tomorrow night. I was getting to it and then realized I was about to start. All right, Tom said, a bit less than 20 years ago, a woman I knew at work asked me about some repairs to her house. During discussion of those repairs, which I was unable to make happen for her, sadly, she told me of how her ex-husband had been deployed as a National Guard member and how the deployment led to the dissolution of their marriage, his emotional trauma during the deployment. It really brought me to think about the cost of war that isn't measured in dollars. Thank you, Tom. That's exactly what we're here to talk about. Um, and those costs of war, they are measured in families. There's just no other way around it. It's not just the individual warrior; it's the whole families that pay the cost. So now I want to talk about something that is genuinely good news, and then I want to talk about the context that makes it complicated. So, a new VA community-based outpatient clinic, STBOC for short, is expected to be built in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, according to reporting from WDRB. Now, construction is set to start this coming winter with an opening plan for spring or summer of 2027. The clinic will be located along Pear Orchard Road, and it will offer primary care, radiology, mental health services, physical therapy, and other specialized care. The Elizabethtown City Council has already approved the rezoning. It's expected to bring up to 150 jobs and is going to generate more than $40,000 a year in property tax revenue, which we can use for our veterans. And let me tell you, for the over 12,000 veterans right here in Hardin County, this is a critically needed facility. Right now, veterans in this region have to travel significant distances to access VA care, often going to Louisville or beyond. Now, that's a burden that falls hardest on our older veterans, our disabled veterans, our veterans dealing with mental health challenges who need consistent nearby care. So, yes, this is a clinic and that is a victory for us, and it should be celebrated. But let me ask you something. Why did this take so long? Hardin County has been one of the top 3 veteran populated counties in Kentucky for years. Fort Knox has been here since 1918. 40,000 veterans call this region home, and we are only now, getting a CBOC in Elizabethtown. The same Republican politicians who are holding fundraisers on the backs of veteran imagery, they've been controlling Kentucky's congressional delegation for years. They have had every opportunity to prioritize this community. And yet, here we are, still waiting for a clinic that won't open until 2027 at the earliest. The progress, we're finally seeing this progress. Well, it didn't happen because Republican leadership made it a priority. It happened because veterans, advocates, and community members demanded it. Now, it happened in spite of, not because of, a political environment that has been hostile to VA funding and expansion. Again, let me just remind you what DOGE did. Ramrodded through the VA, cut thousands, and the plan is for them to cut 86,000 by the time it's all done. That is a lot of people helping vets return home again, finally, because a lot of us are here, but not all of us are home. So, while this is being planned, this same administration that's cutting VA staff and canceling contracts, well, it's the one that's going to be responsible for staffing and operating it. You can build a clinic, but if you've got the workforce to staff and run that clinic, you've built an empty building. That's the contradiction that we're living in right now. And it's the one that requires local leaders, state leaders, and federal leaders who will fight every single day to make sure that that clinic is fully staffed, fully funded, and fully serving every veteran of Hardin County. Let that sink in. Every veteran of Hardin County needs this. So let's hear someone else that's, a little bit of an expert on this type of thing talk about it. So, yeah.
a fiscal responsibility to use taxpayer dollars to pay people that actually work. That doesn't mean that we forget our veterans by any means. We are going to care for them in the right way, but perhaps they're not fit to have a job at this moment. They're not fit to have a job at this moment.
I served my country honorably for 20 years, and then I decided to continue civil service and work for the VA. And my performance evaluations have been exemplary. I shared with your staff about a week after I was fired, I received a performance bonus.
My reaction at first, it was surprise, disbelief. And I mean, this morning as I packed up my office, it's anger, because it's I was terminated for my performance. I haven't even had a performance review.
This has created a psychological disruption for one who serves over 30 years as a first sergeant, and 11 years with the VA. I feel betrayed.
So, and that's just, the call right there. We've got to truly value our vets. And, we need to see it in action. All right. So this segment is going to be what Democrats are fighting for. And this is a real veterans agenda. So let's talk about what a different direction actually looks like. Because I'm not, just here to criticize. I'm here with solutions. Democrats in Congress have been on the front lines of defending veterans' benefits during this period of DOGE, in this period of DOGE-driven chaos. It was Democratic senators who publicly declared, and I'm just going to paraphrase, the substance of it, that cutting VA staff is the same as cutting benefits. Because when there's no one to process your claim, your benefit is delayed. When there's no one to answer the crisis line, a veteran in danger doesn't get help. Process and staffing are the benefit. Democrats push hard to pass the PACT Act in 2022. That was a landmark legislation that expanded VA benefits and healthcare eligibility for veterans exposed to burn pits, like myself, Agent Orange, like my dad, and other toxic substances. Millions of veterans who have been denied care for years were finally recognized. That's a Democratic achievement. Democrats have consistently pushed for increased VA funding, expanded community-based care options, improved mental health services, stronger protections for veteran housing and employment, and better support systems for military families. If Democrats are elected this November to Congress, to state legislatures, to county offices, here's what we're going to get. More help for veterans that need it. More folks who care more about veterans than they do about the millionaire class. All right, take one more pause here. See, we've got a few other people. I'm not going to mention what the bot said a second ago. Tom says, Alina Habba is a syphilitic sycophant to the orange buffoon. She has more teeth than functioning brain cells. Got to love that one. Absolutely got to agree with you. So, all right, let's take another little puppy break, and we'll be right back. All right, y'all. So we know, like I said, the Democrats, they've just consistently pushed for increased VA funding, expanded community-based care options. Now, if we do elect Democrats this November, we're going to, number one, fully fund and staff the new Elizabethtown VA community-based outpatient clinic. This is extremely important. Fight to ensure that it opens on time and serve veterans from day one. They can't do this if they're not fully staffed. And if we don't elect an administration that will change what is going on right now, they won't be fully staffed when they open. Number two, if we can elect Democrats this time around that will fight for us, then we're going to protect those PACT Act benefits, which I rely on for my health and sanity, and so many of my fellow brothers and sisters that have served, man, they rely on it. It's changed lives, and I mean it literally, mine included. Now, the hard-won expansion of care for toxic exposure veterans, this is key. It must not be rolled back or gutted through budget cuts. We came so far, and people have been fighting for so long for recognition of Gulf War illness syndrome from the first Gulf War, and then carry that over to the 20-year war that we just ended. Man, there's a lot of toxic exposure and other exposures and traumatic brain injuries that the PACT Act is helping for. Just talked to a very good friend tonight, and he is suffering from leukemia and from diabetes that are both related to these exposures and these deployments. He can't afford any more cuts to the VA. I don't want to see him a loss that I have to go to a funeral for when we could have done right. So remember that. Now, number 4, supporting military families. This is another key, crucial thing. Active duty families at Fort Knox and in the surrounding communities deal with unique stressors. Like I said, they are part of this whole package. They have frequent moves, deployment separations, childcare challenges, education transitions, and they deserve targeted support. One of the biggest things that I saw the Obama family take a real interest in was as soon as President Obama was elected the first time, he came to visit Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where I was stationed with the Marines. And they talked to families and active duty and people getting ready to transition from active duty to getting out of the military. And what they keep hearing, hey, the families were saying, we move around all the time. We can't get a stable career. And yet we follow our active duty staff everywhere we go. We need something to help us with that. So what did Obama do? He created basically a GI Bill for family members, where every family member got money to go study a career that was portable. Had to be a portable career, such as teaching, nursing, x-ray technicians, these things that you can get up and travel and go anywhere and take them and hop right in. Your career is not going to extremely suffer. Had to be portable. And lots of families got in on that. Pentagon didn't like it because that was a lot of money away from missiles and bombs and going straight into helping families out. But boy, it helped a lot of families. Now, another thing that President Obama was very concerned about was he kept hearing folks in the military saying, hey, I'm getting out soon. I've got all this experience as an aircraft mechanic, as a hospital corpsman, as a shipboard welder, and yet it doesn't translate to a certification in the civilian world like it should. I've got more experience than most people in the civilian world, and yet I can't hop right into the career I've done in the military and use it in the civilian world. So he came up with a serious plan, put it into place to try to change that. A lot of good came out of it. A lot of pushback came out of it also from Congress, which at the time, there wasn't a majority for Democrats, so he couldn't just say, do it all, but they did some of it, and it really helped me when I got out. Troops to Teachers was something that was created by President Clinton. That's why I'm a teacher today. Really love it. All right. Now, again, if this election goes the way that we need it to, the fifth thing is going to be investments in veteran economic opportunities. These are things we need, such as jobs, housing, small business support. Some of the best small business entrepreneurs are veterans. We need to recognize that, especially here in this county. We need to make sure that we are helping and facilitating vets that want to start their own business after giving so much of their life to the orders of others. Now let them be their own bosses. So if we do that, if we recognize veterans have skills that this whole community needs, we need to embrace those skills head on and welcome them, bring them in. We should be doing everything that's absolutely possible in order to keep them from leaving here and allowing them to thrive here. So this is what a real commitment to our veteran community looks like. It's not a bumper sticker. It's not a photo op in front of a flag, kissing and hugging and having sex with the flag like Captain Bone Spurs likes to do. It's a real agenda. This is a legislative agenda that would have actual teeth, not just a joke. All right, y'all. So, again, I come from a long line of veterans. I come from folks who have served this country at every time the country called. Every single war, every single skirmish, we've been there. And before I go on, let's see. Got a few more comments here. I don't want to neglect anybody. All right. Tom saying, puppy break story. A few years ago, my dog got to see a horse from across the fence. One turned tail, noped away. They were in the car with me yesterday, and we were behind a horse trailer with a horse in it. And both dogs wanted to meet the horse. They clearly didn't see how big the horse was. Can't wait to put those videos on tomorrow, Tom. I knew a guy who was a power plant mechanic, Tom says, who couldn't get airframe and power plant rating in civilian life because he didn't have official airframe training. That sucked. And yes, Tom, that's exactly it. So before the Obama initiative, which started the military having an apprenticeship program for active duty folks so they could get those certifications, my brother Kelly, he served two different branches in the military. First, he served in the Marine Corps. He got the aircraft mechanic and power plant certification and airframe certification while he was on active duty by paying for that the certification out of his own pocket, even though the Marine Corps, the United States Navy Marine Corps, had paid for all of his training, thousands upon thousands of dollars of training for him to have the knowledge and skills to do all that work. And then he did that for 4 years straight in the Marine Corps, and yet he had to go pay for a certification. Well, that turned around a bit, like I said, when President Obama started the apprenticeship program. I retired in 2014, so I don't know if the military is still, keeping that up. Hopefully they are, because it was really great thing and was really helping a lot of vets that really need it. That's the key thing, helping the vets that need it, keep programs that actually work, and keep on boosting them. We don't need to go backwards. So, y'all, now let's get a little personal. I served, like I said, in the United States Navy Hospital Corps from 1990 to 2014. That's 24 years of service. I'm a combat vet. I know exactly what it means to serve. I know what it means to watch fellow service men and women suffer. And I know what it means to come home and navigate a system that wasn't always ready to serve us. Now, when I retired, I made a choice. I chose to keep on serving. First, it was the VA, and then it was Homeland Security with immigration as a supervisor for a bit. Then it was back to the VA, and then, I decided I really wanted to come back to my old Kentucky home and see if I can make it my new Kentucky home. And I have. And I've done that as a public school teacher. I did the Troops to Teachers program. I taught for 2 years at North Hardin High School, right there in Radcliffe, Kentucky, teaching the children of this military community. Some of those kids, their parents were active duty soldiers at Fort Knox. And some of them were the grandkids of veterans who've lived here for decades. I now teach at Jefferson County Public Schools. As I was telling you last night, I did that because I didn't want any conflict of interest as I'm running for this office. So teaching for me, it's service. There's just nothing better than serving. And, I haven't had as much camaraderie as I have now as a teacher. I had this camaraderie, a similar camaraderie in the military, and I yearned to find it again. And I finally found it again as a teacher. So, us teachers, we're in the trenches, and that's why I find that camaraderie. So, the biggest thing is also education is how I see we build the future. We are the framers of the future, not just, the future for your own family, but for your community. That's what it is to be a teacher. And when I look at Hardin County, when I look at Magistrate District 3, I see a community full of people who have been given what? Everything that, good folks could want, but we need leaders who are going to fight for us at every level of government. We need this county to keep on being a growing place, but also a place full of tradition. This rural tradition, it runs deep and it means something deep to every person that lives here. This veteran tradition runs right alongside it, just as deep, just as wide. And we need to embrace both of these cultures. And that's why I'm running for magistrate. Now, I know that's some of you are thinking, hey, what does a county magistrate have to do with veterans health care or with federal VA funding? Now, that's a fair question. So let me try to answer it directly. A county magistrate, a member of the Hardin County Fiscal Court, has real power to shape life in this community. And here's how I plan to use that power to fight for veterans and military families in District 3. First and foremost, I will be the loudest, the most persistent advocate for county government to see and look and work for veterans and for veteran services. This means working with Hardin County veterans, service officers, working with the VFW that I'm a member of, working with the American Legion that I'm a member of, to make sure that every eligible veteran knows what their benefits should be and can be here in this county, and that they can access those benefits. Thousands of veterans in this county are leaving money, disability pay, pension, healthcare eligibility right on the table because they don't know what they've earned. And this is a travesty. I've seen it. I have fought for veterans to understand what they deserve and earned. I did that as an employee of the VA. And, I still do it with any interaction I have with a veteran that doesn't know what their benefits are. So I will continue to do that. I will fight to change the fact that many veterans don't know what they've earned with all the years of sacrifice. Now, second, I'm going to push for county investments in veteran-friendly housing and infrastructure. This is really key. This is great for Hardin County, and it's great for our veterans. When the new VA CBOC opens in Elizabethtown, that clinic that we're talking about, I want to make sure that the roads and the transportation options and community resources that are all around it are equipped to serve our veterans, especially those who are elderly, disabled, like my brother was, or living in the more rural parts of District 3. I too am disabled, but I still have my limbs intact, unlike my brother, unlike many of the folks I serve with and that I see and care for still here in this county. So we've talked about how important it is that Hardin County Fiscal Court live up to its promise of a county transportation system, public transportation system run by the county. This is going to be absolutely crucial once we have a VA clinic in Elizabethtown. Now, third, I'm going to advocate for active duty military families in our community. This is near and dear to my heart, as that was my family for many years. When a soldier deploys, their family is still here. Their kids are in our schools. Their spouses are trying to, navigate life in their own way without one of their anchors right there with them. So the county government can do more to support those families through school partnerships, social service coordination, and community programs that recognize the unique demands that the military family life entails. Fourth, I'm going to be a voice for mental health resources at the county level. Veteran suicide is a crisis. I've seen it. I've dealt with it. I've been to the funerals. I've cried at my brother's grave. Connecting veterans to mental health services, whether through the VA, community providers, or veteran peer support networks, which I'm a part of, should be a county priority. And I'm going to make it one. And fifth, I will bring the perspective of someone who has been in the uniform, who has treated the wounded on the battlefield and in clinics at sea and ashore, here at home in the USA and overseas. And I have served alongside people from every background that this great nation has to offer. And to every single decision made in the Hardin County Fiscal Court, I will bring this experience, not just on veterans issues, on all of it, because the values you develop through military service, these values of honor, courage, and commitment, things that you look at a veteran and see, you look at them and you see discipline, integrity, commitment to your teammates, putting mission and people ahead of yourself. Well, those are just, the values that I'm going to bring to every single vote, every budget decision, and every policy discussion that I'm involved in. I've spent my life in service. First, in the United States Navy and Marine Corps team. Then in the classroom, after the VA, of course. And now I want to serve the people of Hardin County, Kentucky, District 3. And I'm asking for your vote. So before I go on, if y'all would please like and subscribe to this channel. Let me know what you think. Let me know what needs you see in this community that maybe I haven't seen that, veterans need. All right. Got someone on here apparently from South Carolina. We got jaw work saying South Carolina needs some serious accountability. Yeah, I've been stationed there briefly before. I should say passed through and loaded things up and done a little mission in and out of there. It was short station time, TAD. And let's take another little puppy break before we end tonight. And let's think about all those, deployed overseas right now and what they're going to want when they come home. What is it that they expect out of this county and out of this state? All right, y'all. Now, again, we know that folks have been blocking bills to help veterans on the GOP side of the House for quite some time now. And we've got to stop that. This has to be a government for the people and by the people, not for the billionaires anymore. We can't keep on saying, hey, kids, go to war, but when you come back, we're not going to take care of you. We can't do these empty promises, empty lies anymore. So, y'all, this is my bottom line, and this is my call to action. Let me just bring this home. Hardin County, Kentucky is one of the most veteran-dense communities in this entire state. Over 12,000 veterans, nearly 50,000 when you include all the soldiers at Fort Knox, all the active duty folks, and you look at the military families in Radcliffe, Vine Grove, Elizabethtown, Colesburg, Youngers Creek, Brineyville, Cecilia, Upton, every corner of this county, we've got veterans families, active duty families. And these are people, they kept their promise to America, unlike folks in DC. They signed that bottom line, that dotted line, and they meant what they said when they swore an oath to our Constitution. Now, they went and they weren't told to go. We haven't had a draft in many decades now. They volunteered. They fought. They sacrificed. They bled. And in too many cases, they died. They deserve better than politicians, who wave that flag on Veterans Day or Memorial Day or on the 4th of July, but then they vote to cut the VA in January. They deserve better than representatives who will talk about fiscal responsibility while cutting cancer treatment for veterans exposed to toxic chemicals. Or veterans like my dad, exposed to Agent Orange, who end up dying in the VA after 2 rounds of cancer 2 years in a row, right after burying my brother that he found hanging in his closet. They deserve better than an administration that promised to put veterans first and then sent DOGE in to fire the people who answer the phones at the VA. They deserve leaders at every level who understand service, not as a talking point, but as a way of life. I am that leader. This November, vote for Democrats up and down the ballot who have a proven track record of fighting for veterans. And in Hardin County, Magistrate District 3, vote for combat veteran, a Navy hospital corpsman, a public school teacher, and a neighbor who is all in it for this community. Vote like the future of this county and the future of this country depends on it, because the 12,000 veterans, and for tens of thousands of military families, for the generations of children in our schools who will inherit whatever kind of community we build, it does matter. And it is the future. I am Spencer Keck. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your service. And let's get to work. Hoorah. Y'all remember everyone deployed overseas. Bless your corazon and have an amazing rest of the week.
Because when the banks foreclosed and farms across the